We all know Santa Claus, right? The big red suit, the sleigh, the workshop at the North Pole. It's all so familiar. But what if I told you that behind that whole legend, there was a real person? And that his actual life story is honestly even more incredible than the myth he inspired? So let's get into it and uncover the true story. So that's the big question we're tackling today. We're going to peel back centuries of folklore, tradition, and a whole lot of marketing to find out who was the real historical person who became one of the most famous figures on the entire planet. And just look at this comparison. The difference is just staggering. The legend puts him in the freezing cold North Pole, right? But the real man, he lived in the warm climate of 4th century Turkey. We think of a magical workshop with elves, but he was actually a bishop, running a church. And maybe the biggest shocker, far from just being a jolly old gift giver, he was arrested, beaten, and thrown in prison for his faith. It's a completely different picture, isn't it? To really understand this man, we have to go right back to the beginning. His story doesn't start with magic or reindeer. It starts with tragedy, deep faith, and an incredible act of generosity that would literally echo for thousands of years. Okay, so his name was Nicholas, and he was born around the year 270 in a place that's now modern-day Turkey. He came from a very well-off family, and his parents were devout Christians. But then tragedy struck. They died in an epidemic when he was still young, leaving him an orphan, all alone, but with a massive inheritance. And this right here, this is the moment his legacy truly kicks off. Think about it. He's young, he's got all this money, and he's just lost everything. What does he do? He makes a choice that would define his entire life. He decides to give it all away to people who needed it. And maybe the most famous story about his generosity is this one. There was a poor man who had 3 daughters, but he couldn't afford the dowries to get them married. This meant they were facing the horrible possibility of being sold into servitude. Well, Nicholas heard about this, and he wanted to help, but he wanted to do it in secret. So in the middle of the night, he went to their house and threw 3 bags of gold right through their window. This secret gift completely saved the family, and, well, that's the origin story for the mysterious gift giver who comes in the night. Now, Nicholas's reputation for piety and generosity didn't go unnoticed. His life was about to take another huge turn, one that would make him a leader in his community during one of the most dangerous times to be a Christian in history. He became the bishop of Myra at, you could say, the worst possible time. It was during the reign of Emperor Diocletian, who unleashed the most brutal persecution of Christians the Roman Empire had ever seen. And for refusing to give up his faith, Nicholas was arrested, tortured, and thrown into prison for years. He was only freed when a new emperor, Constantine, came to power and made Christianity legal. This just shows you he wasn't some soft, gentle man. He had a spine of absolute steel. But getting out of prison wasn't the end of his story. Oh no. In fact, he would soon be tied to one of the most important events in the history of the Church, which all went down in the year 325 AD, the Council of Nicaea. This council was a huge deal. It was called to settle a major debate about who Jesus was. And while the historical records are a little fuzzy, a very strong tradition says Nicholas was there. And he was a passionate defender of the faith. There's even this wild story that he got so heated during a debate with a heretic named Arius that he actually walked across the room and slapped him. I mean, that's a man with some serious conviction. So beyond his charity and his courage, Nicholas's legend really took off because of the many miracles people said he performed. He became known as this powerful protector of the weak and a provider for anyone in need. And the stories of these miracles are just amazing. They say he once physically stopped an executioner from killing 3 innocent men by grabbing his sword. During a terrible famine, he talked some sailors into leaving grain for his starving city, promising them they'd be fine. And when they reached their destination, their cargo holds were miraculously full again. He got so famous for saving sailors from storms at sea that he became their patron saint. It's so clear that for the people of his day, he was way more than just a bishop. He was a hero. Okay, so we have this amazing historical person, a generous saint, a courageous leader, a miracle worker. But how on earth did he become, well, him? Let's trace the incredible journey of almost 1,700 years that turned this man into the myth we know today. Well, it was a really slow process. After he died, his tomb became a huge pilgrimage site. Then, in 1087, his bones were moved to Italy, which basically turbocharged his fame all across Western Europe. The tradition of giving secret gifts on his feast day, December 6th, started to spread. Fast forward a few centuries, and Dutch settlers bring their version of St. Nicholas, who they called Sinterklaas, to America. And from there, over time, that name and that tradition slowly morphed into the Santa Claus we all know.
And that right there is the key. Sinterklaas. Just say it out loud a few times. Sinterklaas, Santa Claus. You can literally hear the evolution. Our modern myth is a direct linguistic descendant of the devotion to this ancient saint.
So, after all that, when we strip away the reindeer, the elves, the North Pole, what are we actually left with? What's the real core message of St. Nicholas that still matters to us today? We're left with the virtues that made people love him in the first place. A truly radical generosity that made him give away a fortune. An unwavering courage to stand up for his beliefs, even if it meant being tortured or killed. A deep, passionate drive for justice for the poor and the innocent. And a fierce dedication to his faith. Ultimately, the story of St. Nicholas leaves us with this one powerful, timeless idea. It's the idea that true wealth isn't about what you keep for yourself, but about what you give away to others. The real magic behind Santa Claus wasn't ever a sleigh. It was the incredible power of self-giving love.